There are strong indications that the federal government is favorably disposed to raising the minimum wage to as high as 200,000 naira per month as demanded by the organized labor in the country. However, state governors are urging for caution, while Anambra State Governor Charles Soludo has been asked to chair a technical working group to resolve the issues and its various dimensions. It was gathered that the matter was discussed at the last month's National Economic Council meeting, and it was there that the Salaries, Incomes and Wages Commission made a presentation on how the federal government can meet up with the demand of 200,000 naira per month minimum wage. Sources who spoke revealed that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is specifically and personally convinced that the demand of the organized labor is not unrealistic, pointing to his campaign promises proof of his readiness to handle the challenge. Recall that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, as president-elect, also said on Workers' Day on May 1st that in the Nigeria I shall have the honor and privilege to lead from May 29th, workers will have more than a minimum wage. You will have a living wage to have a decent life and provide for your families. At the NEC meeting, which the president inaugurated in June, the Salaries and Wages Commission costed the financial implications of the said minimum wage increase and showed how the federal government could pay it, with a certain recommendation that it was well within the capacity of the federal government. But at the meeting, the state governors who make up the membership of the NEC raised questions over the proposal. Leading the governors at the meeting was Anambra State Governor Professor Charles Soludo, who urged and argued that before adopting the presentation to significantly raise the national minimum wage, it would be important for the NEC to first understand where the money would come from, how much would come and what states would get it. Part of the expectations and planning is that with the new foreign exchange policy, more cash would be available to be shared by the federal and state governors and governments under the FAAC monthly distribution, in which case, according to informed sources, there will be enough surplus cash to enable the significant raising of the minimum wage from 30,000 naira to 100,000 naira monthly. Similarly, the savings from the fuel subsidy would further mean more cash inflow to the Federation accounts. At the June NEC meeting, a subcommittee was formed to review the situation, as was publicly announced, composed of governors led by Kebbi State Governor with 6 other governors among the members. They are the governors of Anambra State, Benue State, Kaduna State, Bauchi State, Cross River State, and Oyo State, with each representing the 6 geopolitical zones. In the subcommittee are also the Director General of Budget Office of the Federation, Governor of Central Bank of Nigeria, Accountant General of the Federation, and the representatives of NNPCL. Others included representatives from the Organized Labor, TUC, and NLC, and Ms. Rukayat El-Rufai, according to a statement from the Office of the Vice President, who is the next chairman. The subcommittee, at its meeting soon after the NEC last month, formed a technical working group with Governor Soludo as chairman to interrogate the issues around raising the minimum wage, understanding that it is both the federal and state governments and not just the federal government that will be responsible for the payment of the new minimum wage. Under Soludo's leadership, the TWG has met at least thrice last month on the 24th, 27th, and 30th respectively. In one of its major resolutions, the TWG resolved that negotiations with Labour must be two tracks between the federal government in one hand and the state government in another hand. Later this month, the NEC would meet to receive the report of the subcommittee and take a final decision on the national minimum wage, which would then be forwarded to the president as an advisory. It was further gathered that what is most likely is that at the very last, federal government workers would be receiving the huge minimum wage increase, while the Soludo TWG would determine the fate of the state workers. Meanwhile, Speaker of the House of Representatives, Honorable Tajuddin Abbas, has emphasized the 10th House commitment to critical needs of Nigerians by paying priority attention to participatory budgeting process and delivery, law reform, electoral reform, women's participation and inclusion in governance. The Speaker has also promised that the 10th House is committed to improved socio-economic conditions, entrepreneurship, employment, health and education, infrastructure, citizens-focused diplomacy, institutional capacity and citizens' engagement, constitutional and amendment restructuring, among others. Abbas made the commitment at the stakeholders' meeting on the 10th House of Representatives legislative agenda held in Abuja. According to him, there is no better way to show that the 10th Houses of Representatives is ready to respond urgently to the yearnings of those who votes them to do the people's business. He said that the event is meant to keep the 10th House resolved as representatives of the people to regularly consult citizens in the discharge of the mandate given to them. You will recall that while welcoming colleagues from our short recess on the 4th of this month, I declared the 10th House as the House of the People. Indeed, my speech was aptly titled, "In the People's House for the People's Mandates." I equally promised that while it is the duty of the House to develop a legislative agenda for which our constituents will hold us accountable, the House would not hesitate to consult with critical stakeholders in developing the agenda to elicit their own input and areas of expectations, which is the reason we have gathered here this morning. We can never overemphasize the fact that citizens' engagement is the fulcrum of a representative democracy. It is only through such engagements that legislatures will become truly the representatives of the people. To do otherwise will amount to a democracy without the people. It is fitting, therefore, that the Committee on Legislative Agenda, in the course of its assignment, has convened this forum to get from citizens what they consider the most pressing legislative need of our nation. I urge the stakeholders gathered here to make the most use of this very important opportunity. Our desire is to have a legislative agenda that meets the yearnings and aspirations of citizens and with which they would use as a benchmark to evaluate and assess our performance after 4 years. Therefore, today's meeting should not be seen as the usual talk shop. Consider it a critical national assignment.